I love this is about the purity of the art. It's like you're doing this because you like jazz and you want to be a jazz musician.
I'm
It's
just
not
trying to
like
make my own music,
exactly.
trying to
It's
express my whatever my path is.
yeah, I just love art in the beginning stages when to me it's the most pure and it's
Yeah.
like I'm doing this because I love it. And that to me is how you get the best stuff.
That's what you gotta hold on to. You
Well,
gotta
that's
do it because you love it the
yeah.
whole way through and through. Like you can't even take a second and say, "Oh yeah, let me do this for the money." Like nope, because if you think that, you're not gonna get the money.
You have to be
The money comes because you're doing it because you love it.
yeah, exactly.
You will
yeah.
get rewarded for that energy you're putting into it.
100%.
But if you chase the dollar, it's not gonna work. And
Work
like
on Wall Street. Get a
yeah.
different job. That's not what art is about. Art isn't about making millions of dollars quickly. It's about
Right.
doing the art. And then
Right.
if it's supposed to catch on, it will. And then if, it isn't, it won't. But then it's like
That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, some people would argue like, well, with like marketing and whatever, like you can really do anything with any music, which I think is true.
But it
Um,
doesn't last. It's
but
not it's
but
not
I
the
don't
same.
think it's not. Yeah, it's not the same because like even with someone as famous as Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
I don't
okay.
think Taylor Swift is gonna have as big of an impact on music as someone like Miles Davis did.
Undeniably so.
Because yeah,
She has
Taylor
her
Swift
place.
has good music, right? She has good music. She has her place. She has been very revolutionary in a lot of her own ways. However, I don't think you can compare like a superstar who has had all of this support over the years, who has had all of this marketing, all this agency, all this, you know, like economic support, like through all of these other businesses getting involved and all these like it's such a larger the music industry as a whole is such a larger beast
Yeah.
and more complicated beast. Much more is going into it than it used to be. So to me, that just like it's not the same as building up really from nothing.
No, it's not 100%. I mean,
Like-
you're literally talking about like establishment versus grassroots, and it's
Right.
like if you're a product of the music industry and the music establishment, it's a totally different thing than like
Right.
building your audience
Right.
brick by brick,
That's what
going
I'm
out
trying
to
to
an
say.
open mic and like fostering that genuine
Right.
connection.
Not to
and
say
you're
that-
the type of art it's reflective in the type of artist you are. It's like
Yeah.
the type of person I don't know. I guess it's like you find what you're meant to do. You find what you're supposed to do. The type of person that really wants to do like the super high level art is going to go out and do it that way because they know you got to put in the time, you got to put in the work, and you got to earn it. That's how you
Right.
do it. But I mean, honestly, I don't even really I don't even understand how like the pop industry machine works. Like, I don't get where do they find these people?
Yeah.
Do they just make them in a lab somewhere?
Well-
I don't even.
I mean, I can like, I don't know a whole lot about all of the ins and outs, but I having talked to a lot of people and I am in music school, so there is a bit of information going around.
Currently, you're a student at UML, right?
I'm a student at UMass Lowell for music performance. I got a couple years under my belt. It's been good. We had Sam Hollander, who was a producer,
Okay.
songwriter, come and do a talk last year, and that was great. He basically explained a lot of how the industry works, like from a songwriter perspective, like
Okay.
and like pretty much like someone like Taylor Swift is gonna have like 3, maybe 4 songwriters in the room with them, like in the studio, like, and it's multiple sessions of a team of songwriters helping an artist come up with their vision, like find their vision.
Okay.
So like a common misconception is that all these pop artists are writing their own songs.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
not.
that's one of the first things
They're
I
not.
look at with all mainstream pop. And if someone actually does write their own stuff, I'm like, okay, I'll tip my cap to you and
Yeah.
give you more credit
Yeah,
because it's harder.
That to me is absolutely essential, because I don't think that popular music has to be so washed like clean. You know, like it doesn't have to be all the same group of songwriters creating the same types of pop music. Like that's just like those songwriters. Like I'm kind of jumping around a bit, but he describes like that environment as that environment is specifically to help the artist achieve their vision, but also make the song as likable as humanly possible.
Well, that's the
as
thing.
as like dopamine thick as possible. Like, what's the catchiest hook? What's the most agreeable, lyrics? Like,
How do
what's
we
the
make
most
it
like
as
relatable, as mainstream as possible?
Yeah.
That is like, that's the machine that I don't like.
Yes.
About the music industry is that all of this money and time and all these people and these record labels are so focused on making the most mainstream, likable thing because that's what makes the most money.
It's safe.
It's safe. And it's like that so they basically take these promising young artists and they filter them through their machine and spit out another generic pop artist.
So what you're telling me is that hypothetically, say I'm Nick Moore, singer, songwriter, guitarist, or whatever.
Right.
I'm not. But like I go to a record label and I have my original music and I'm like, I want to make this or I want to put this out. They're gonna filter me through that machine and unless I'm like, no, you're not taking my music and editing it. They're gonna take it and make it. They're gonna make it pop music essentially.
Well, they would. Well, yeah. It depends on what label you go to. Obviously, if you go to one of these labels, like I forget which label Taylor Swift is on, but it's probably like Columbia or whatever.
I can pull it up, right?
Yeah. Check it out. Like, if you go to like a label like that, then yeah, if they were to offer you a contract, it would probably be something like, yeah, we are gonna control what material you're putting out. We pick the songwriters. We pick the team. We pick which songs we like. I mean, I can't even get into how complicated it all is, but like, you might have an album done, and they're like, yeah, we like this. Like, well, why don't you come back? You're not gonna use any of those songs. You're not gonna use any of them. Or what they'll do is you'll sign away all your rights as part of your contract to those original songs and to all the future songs you make, and then they might not use them immediately, but then down the line they will use them under someone else's name. They'll take the songs and because you signed your rights away. So, long story short, record companies are shady, and don't trust them. Don't sign your rights away. But also, you kind of need a label.
It's good advice.
You definitely read the fine print, research, and just
start your own business.
Do the best you can. I mean, really, like, it's hard to say what the way to go is as an independent musician right now. A lot of people do find success self-releasing.
Yeah.
Even like without a label, just self-releasing singles. Like, you can get lucky.
Is your goal to get signed to a label eventually? Because obviously, you, like we already touched on, you self-released your demo tape. It's on SoundCloud.
Right. It's just on SoundCloud. Like, could I have released it to Spotify, Apple Music? Yeah, but it's a bit more of a process to do that.
Okay.
Because you still have to get licensing. Like, you still have to pay fees. Like, you have to get a service. Like, it's not like SoundCloud where you can just put something on.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
I don't currently have a YouTube channel.
Okay,
I am gonna create that soon. Though.
Okay. There we go.
Because then I'm gonna start posting long form, videos, more performance stuff. Probably explore some other types of content.
Awesome.
Yeah. Right now I'm mainly on Instagram. I got my website. I don't really use Facebook for stuff, but I mean, there's ways to be connected online without a label, basically.
Well, the internet changed everything.
The internet changed
the game.
Oh, yeah. Because now it's like, if you're trying to book yourself a gig, you got to have this list of hundreds of emails to all these businesses, and you got to send out this mass email to hundreds of places, like, hey, I'm whatever, I'm a musician, whatever. Like, you make your pitch. And it's tedious, Whereas back in the day, it was still tedious, but instead of, emailing your demo file or your link to your whatever to someone, you would have your bag of demos, your bag of cassette tapes that you recorded yourself, you whatever, mixed whatever you did yourself, physical tapes, and you would go on, you know, fucking Broadway in New York where all the record labels were lined up, and you would go and
You'd sell yourself.
you would just go knock at every
Yeah.
single door, and you would try to, you know, rain or shine, you would just try to sell yourself in person, make a name. Like, you might like research
They're definitely-
who's the person, try to say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, like you learn their names, you learn what they do, and you make a connection, and then you just try your best. And that was a long and tedious process as well, but it was totally different.
You're 100% right. There is something lost in losing like the physical, like just sitting at a computer shooting out like, do you like me, will you accept me, as opposed to like actually yeah, there's just something different about physically being there, and that's
Right.
it's,
That's what it should be, in my opinion.
that's what art is about. Art, that's again,
It's
bring
got
it back to jazz. That's the thing
you
about
gotta hear
jazz.
it.
It happens live in the moment. It's
live.
special. You have to
Yeah.
be there in that special moment. And then once the moment's gone, it's gone forever.
Right.
And that's one of the beautiful things about art. And it's like when a performer catches fire on stage and you're there in that moment,
Nothing
there's
else like it.
you took the words right out of
Yeah.
my mouth, because
That's
there is
it.
nothing else like
Yeah.
it. It's pure and it's real and you can feel it. And the comedian equivalent is killing on stage, and I've literally only killed once in my life, and it's such a powerful feeling. I remembered it. I was at the lunch table in high school, just kind
Okay.
of riffing
Okay.
around a bunch of people, and it's like, it was like an out of body thing where it's like I was aware of it. I was like thinking while I was talking, and like everything I was saying, people were just laughing at, and I was like, oh, it was like a very brief moment, but I was like, oh, this is it.
That's
where
the
it's like
feeling.
you're just you're in the flow state. You're in this moment where it's like you're doing the thing, but you're aware you're doing it, but it's like it's just kind of
It's coming out.
yeah, it's just happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the beauty about art is I think it just flows out of you.
100, yeah,
It just, I mean,
absolutely.
at least like I think that's one of the most purest.
It's almost like you're
expressions.
tapping into something as well too.
Yeah.
It's like you're a conduit, you're a vessel. You're tapping into this energy or spirit, this muse out there in the universe. And you and I, as the artist, you as a musician, me as like whatever I'm doing, right, telling my stupid jokes. It's like we're tapping into different parts of the artistic muse or whatever, and we're bringing it to life. It's like it's
Yeah.
an idea or something that exists out there in the universe, and then we make it real.
I think you're spot on. Like, I don't think a lot of people are aware that they understand that this is kind of a concept, like with art, with music. Keith Jarrett famously has described his process with improvisation, and I relate heavily to
Okay.
his experience, and I really like his stuff. Because he basically, like, this is a gross generalization. There's some articles, if I find them, I could send them your way, that go into this. It's like he will, like, it's like the universe is like the actant that like spawns the improvisation, like, because improvisation is a very complicated subject. Like, how do you define it?
Yeah.
Right. That's actually a big part of my major as music performance is improvisation.
Okay.
I took a great class last semester about improvisation. Basically just went through a bunch of different ways to look at improvisation, from like a musical perspective, but also from like a conversational perspective. Like, if you think about it, conversations is improvisation.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, we're improving right
Right,
now. This
right.
isn't planned.
Like, you can decide, yeah, we're gonna talk about these types of things, but we didn't plan out what subject exactly we're gonna talk about. We didn't say, yeah, we're gonna talk about my stuff, Miles Davis, all this other stuff. No, we just said, let's just talk about shit.
Let's just have a conversation.
Right,
Let's see
right.
what happens.
And then, so we're improving right now, right? So you could say, like, we're tapping in to some stream that's just happening, and we're just tapping into it. Like,
we're collaborating with the universe, and
Right.
we're collaborating with each other.
right. And so that's kind of the concept that Keith Jarrett explores. Is it's not he's not planning out where his fingers are gonna go. He's not even thinking. His mind is empty.
Who is Keith Jarrett? Just
So Keith Jarrett is a pianist, instrumentalist, composer, who worked with Miles Davis in one of his earlier fusion groups.
Okay.
From I think 70 to 71.
what
He played.
what albums was he on?
I don't. He might
I
be
can-
on some later albums too. He might be on the Corner, which is I think is 75.
That's amazing album.
I don't remember exactly which ones he's on. You could.
I'm
feel
trying
free
to find his
educate.
his
educate us.
discography.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's big.
But he has a famous concert. It's the Köln concert in Germany. It's entirely improvised. Solo piano, the Köln concert, Koln, I think. Maybe it's in Switzerland. It's fully improvised, only solo piano, and he just plays the entire time. And it's really like nothing else. Like you can tell he is so.
It was in West Germany.
It was West Germany, right? He was so in it. He was so, like that's like one of the most famous piano recordings that there is.
Wow. And it's all improv.
It's all improvised. Yeah. He didn't.
There's something.
He didn't have a single thought when they just haven't.
There is some like cosmic, some very
Yeah.
important truth to that. Something
Yeah.
very, very important just to the
Oh.
fact of like, okay,
It's clear.
he just went in and he just did it. He's like, obviously, I don't want to say no preparation because it's like you have to learn to play, you have to put in your time, you have to do all of
Right.
that. But it's
the
like
preparation is his whole life before that.
exactly, yes, exactly.
Practicing
Yep.
channeling this universal energy. And so now it's like he can just, I mean, if he's still alive, he can just play. I
Yeah.
mean, and like when I discovered his music, I realized like I've never met anyone else that does it the same way that I do, like Keith Jarrett does, because that's what I do. I don't like I'm really lucky, honestly. I can just throw my hands down on the keys and stuff just starts happening, and I don't even think about it. But it took me years to realize this. When I'm playing, when I'm in the zone, I'm not thinking. I didn't realize that most people actually are actively thinking while they're playing, because they're trying to like, okay, let me hit this note on this chord. Let me put an accent here. It's for me, it's all spontaneous.
You're
There's
just
no
flowing.
It's all feel.
Yeah.
Which like I didn't realize most people don't work like that. Most people aren't able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing that since I was a kid.
When did you first realize you could do that? Just like
When I realized, like last year, like
Okay.
6 months ago,
wow.
like that's when I realized that like hold on, like wait, most people can't do this.
Well, that's what I was. That's why I said earlier. I'm so thrilled we're doing this right now at this stage. It's like this.
Yeah.
This is it. It's like we're finding yourself as an artist and finding your artistic voice.
Right. So, right on that point actually is where I was gonna go next. Is like, okay, so that kind of my whole spontaneous playing thing, really like makes me think. Okay, so then how intentional am I being about what I'm performing, and how intentional am I being about what I'm practicing? What sort of styles I'm implementing? Like, how do I elevate? Basically, how do I elevate to the next level? And for me, it's being more intentional with my playing.
Okay.
Being more intentional with the practice I'm doing, the songs I'm learning, the types of music I'm exploring, like the influences, because what you put in your ears translates exactly to what you express outwards.
Absolutely.
Like if you're listening to a lot of jazz music and then you go and try to compose something on the piano, it's probably going to sound jazzy.
Yep.
Because you've been listening to a lot of jazz music. If you are listening to a lot of trap music, you're probably going to feel more inclined to go make a trap beat on the computer, right? And all of that is equal in my eyes. But it just shows like what you receive is what you put out. And so if I want to be more intentional about
Law of attraction.
my music, exactly, then I want to be more intentional about what I'm consuming, what I'm practicing, what I'm rehearsing, and instead of just every time I play, it's just bloop blop, turn off my brain, play the song. Okay, like no, let me be very intentional. That's for me how I'm trying to reach the next levels is with intention. it's kind of the opposite of feeling, right? It's being intentional versus feeling it out. Trusting the process versus choosing the process.
Absolutely.
Both can give success in their own ways and belong in different spheres, in different types of music, different, even like a different section of the same song. You might want to be more improvisational versus intentional. With classical music, I think it's mostly intentional. There's not a lot of spontaneous feel. I think, yeah, it's much more specific, intentional.
Well, like the orchestra, right? I mean, that everything in the orchestra, like everything is
everything,
very.
right.
It's all intentional with the orchestra. There's
yes.
very little improvisation in that, right?
No, pretty much zero.
Yeah.
Like, unless it's written in for some like avant-garde piece. If it's like an orchestra piece,
well, don't they sometimes
symphony?
have like some? I'm not up to snuff on orchestra, but I like they'll have like first chair or whatever, right? The best at whatever instrument, and in some pieces, like, won't they have like a solo?
You are correct.
Yeah,
actually, yeah. So in symphonies, there's often a cadenza near the end, and that is usually, or it's intended to be historically. Often, cadenzas are pre-composed nowadays, but historically, the cadenza would be completely improvised by the soloist, which would be usually the first chair violinist, would improvise a solo over the music of a previous section, inspired by the melodies of that part of the music. They would take sections and change it and move them around and add different things. That was a whole huge part of that music, is the cadenza, and it was improvised. And it's fascinating that over the years, over the centuries, that has sort of phased into more of a preset thing. It's not as it's not as spontaneous. It's not something where now it's something you're supposed to be practicing. Like, you learn cadenzas instead of make them.
Okay. Wow.
Because the classical music art form, which classical music is a broad term, really classical music is just from like 1690 to 1800 or like whatever time period. It refers to a time period. But, But we use classical music as all symphonic, orchestral, sounds like Beethoven type music. It has, that kind of music has become more of a higher class, has to be specific, has to be intentional, has to be artistic, whereas it used to be like you could play, Baroque music, it's meant to be played in your home with your family in a small group, and it's meant to be improvised. It's meant to be an engaging experience. It's not supposed to be in a famous fancy concert hall. Everyone wears black. Everyone is like all like uptight. Like that has been an evolution of the art. It didn't come up that way. Same with jazz. Like the evolution of music is one of my biggest interests.